I came home early from a business trip to surprise my wife for our anniversary. Instead, I found suitcases by the door and a note that said, "It's not you, it's me." I laughed, poured myself a drink, and waited. Hours later, she came back. "Okay, this is going to be a long one, and I'm still processing everything that's happened, so bear with me. I'm 33, married for 6 years to my wife, Lisa, who is 31. We've always been really good about our anniversary. It's our thing. We don't do huge, extravagant gifts, but we always make sure to spend it together, even if it's just a quiet dinner or a weekend getaway. This year, I was away on a business trip, and I'd been gone for almost a week. Our anniversary was coming up, and I had this plan to come home early as a surprise for her. I thought it would be a perfect way to show her that I still value our relationship. Even with my demanding work schedule, here's where things got weird. I arrived home a day earlier than planned, around 3 p.m., thinking I'd have plenty of time to get everything set up. But when I opened the front door, something felt off. The house was quiet, and there were no signs of her being home. I noticed suitcases by the door. I figured she was packing for a trip we'd planned, but then I saw a note on the counter. It was from Lisa. The note said, "It's not you, it's me." I stood there for what felt like forever, just staring at it. At first, I thought it was some sort of joke, or maybe a prank she was playing. But the more I looked at it, the clearer it became that something was seriously wrong. I couldn't believe it. I mean, we were having our anniversary celebration in just a few hours, and now this? My mind started racing. Was she leaving me? Had something happened that I didn't know about? I felt a knot in my stomach, but then something strange happened. I started laughing, not out of humor, but out of disbelief. I mean, how cliché could this situation get? My wife was about to leave me, and the best she could come up with was, "It's not you, it's me." That's a line straight out of a bad movie. It was almost like the universe was playing some kind of sick joke on me. I poured myself a drink, sat down on the couch, and waited. I wasn't about to chase her or beg her to stay. If she wanted to leave, I wasn't going to make it easy on her. I'd been dealing with a lot of stress at work, and I felt like I was putting in more effort than she was in our relationship. If she really wanted to leave, then fine. But I wasn't going to just pretend everything was fine, sit around, and wait for her to come back on her own terms. About 4 hours later, the door opened. It was Lisa. She looked surprised to see me sitting there, drink in hand, with the suitcases still by the door. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she blurted out, "What are you doing here?" "I came home early to surprise you for our anniversary," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I guess you had other plans." She looked at me, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. "Look, it's not what you think," she said, rushing over to me. "I didn't want to leave you. I don't know how to deal with everything anymore. We've been going through the motions for so long, and I just couldn't pretend like everything was okay." I took a deep breath and set my drink down. "What do you mean, everything's not okay? We've been good, right? You said you were happy. Was this some kind of midlife crisis thing? You couldn't even tell me how you were feeling before now." She looked conflicted, almost like she was going to say something, but was holding back. "I don't know," she replied. "It's just been so much. My mom, she's been getting worse, and I've been trying to help her with everything. And then there's your job and the constant travel. I'm just overwhelmed." Now, this is where things get complicated. Lisa's mom has always been a handful, and we've had our disagreements about how much responsibility I should take for her well-being. Lisa is the only child, so she's been the one to shoulder a lot of the emotional labor when it comes to her mom, who is emotionally demanding and often manipulative. I get that it's hard, but it's been taking a toll on our relationship for a while now. I thought I was being supportive, but clearly, I missed the mark. I didn't realize just how much stress Lisa was under, and maybe I wasn't paying enough attention to what was going on in her life outside of our marriage. But at the same time, I felt like she was putting all her focus on her mom and not enough on us. We had talked about boundaries before, how much help I was willing to give with her mom's situation, but I'd been clear that I couldn't be expected to fix things or constantly drop everything to help. "Lisa," I said, trying to stay calm, "I get that things with your mom are hard, but that doesn't mean you can just check out on me. We're supposed to be partners in this, right? I'm not some background character in your life." She hesitated before speaking. "I don't know if I can be a good partner right now. I've been so wrapped up in everything, and I didn't even know how to talk to you about it." I felt my frustration rise, but I tried to keep my voice steady. Then why didn't you talk to me earlier? Why wait until now to spring this on me? You didn't even think about how I might be feeling? She bit her lip, clearly struggling. I don't know. I thought I could handle it on my own. But I've been shutting you out, and I know that's not fair to you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I could tell she was torn. It wasn't that she didn't love me. It was more that she felt like she was drowning and didn't know how to ask for help. But at the same time, I wasn't about to let her act like I was the villain here. I wasn't perfect, but I didn't deserve to be blindsided by this either. That's when my brother, Chris, called me. He was basically our family spokesperson, always trying to mediate any issues that came up. He'd been hearing from Lisa, and I knew he'd probably try to convince me that it was all my fault. He was right on the other end of the phone when I picked up. Hey man, he said, his voice sounding strained. Lisa's been telling me about what's been going on, and I think you need to listen to her more. She's really been struggling, and you don't seem to understand how much pressure she's under. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. This was exactly the kind of thing I was afraid of, the family getting involved and making it seem like I was the one who wasn't being supportive. Chris, I've been supporting her, I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. But it feels like I'm the one doing all the work here. She can't just keep using her mom as an excuse to shut me out. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Chris finally spoke up. Look, man, I'm just telling you that there's more to this than what you see. It's not all about you. I hung up without saying anything more. I knew that Chris meant well, but I couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was making excuses for Lisa's behavior. And I was the one left picking up the pieces that I turned back to Lisa, who had been sitting quietly, watching me. This isn't just about your mom. This is about us. If we're going to fix this, we both need to put in the work. But if you're not ready for that, then I need to know. She nodded slowly, wiping a tear from her cheek. I don't want to lose you. I don't know how to balance everything. I sighed. Neither do I. But I'm not going to stand here and pretend like I don't have my own struggles, too. If we're going to make it work, we both need to step up. After that conversation, things felt incredibly tense between us. It was like we had opened this floodgate of emotions, but I still wasn't sure where all the water would go. Lisa and I had never been great at talking about our feelings, not in any real way. We do the surface level stuff like, how was your day? Or do you need anything? But never the deeper conversations that were really important, the ones where you're supposed to share what's really weighing on you. I gave her some space that evening, which felt like the right move at the time. I went to bed early, pretending I was fine, but my mind was running in circles. I kept thinking about everything. Her mom's demands, our marriage, the pressure she was under. I tried to remind myself that I wasn't the only one carrying weight in this relationship, but it was hard not to feel like I was carrying all of it sometimes. I had my own pressures from work, but I couldn't help but feel like I was being overlooked. The next morning, Lisa and I had a quiet breakfast together. No real eye contact, just the sound of utensils scraping against plates. I wasn't sure where to start, but I knew I had to. So, I finally broke the silence. I've been thinking, I said, pushing my eggs around on the plate. Maybe we need to rethink how we're doing things with your mom. I'm not saying I don't want to help, but it's like everything is just falling on me now, and I feel like there's no room left for us. Lisa looked at me, her eyes tired. I know. I'm sorry for that. I don't mean for it to be that way, but it just feels like I'm constantly trying to fix things for her, and I don't know how to step back. I nodded. I get that, but you've got to see where I'm coming from too. We've been in this pattern for years now, and I've tried to be understanding, but at some point, I need to feel like I'm more important than just being the guy who helps when things go south with her mom. Lisa swallowed hard, then sighed. I never wanted to make you feel like that. I thought you understood. I thought you were okay with it. But I can see now that I've been selfish. I should have asked for help or talked to you about how overwhelmed I felt. I felt a small sense of relief that she was acknowledging it, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized how deep the rift between us had become. It wasn't just her mom or her emotional distance. It was everything that had built up over the years. The frustrations, the misunderstandings, the small cracks we had both ignored. It wasn't just one thing that was breaking us. It was all of it. That afternoon, Lisa's mom called. I could tell by the way Lisa's face changed that the call was urgent. She left the room to take it, and I stayed behind, thinking. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed to set a clearer boundary. I loved Lisa, I really did, but I couldn't keep living like this. If I didn't set boundaries with her family, especially her mom, nothing would ever change. When Lisa came back, she seemed upset. "I need to go see her," she said quietly. "She's in the hospital again. I don't know how bad it is, but I have to go." I didn't want to be the one to hold her back, but I also didn't want to keep playing second fiddle to her mom's drama. I took a deep breath and said, "Okay, but I think we need to talk about some things when you get back. About us. About how we're going to make this work." Lisa nodded, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I know. I'm so sorry. I've been putting everything else ahead of you. I never meant to do that." She left shortly after, and I found myself sitting in the quiet of the house, alone with my thoughts. As much as I wanted to be understanding, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being treated like an afterthought in my own marriage. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wasn't entirely innocent in this either. I'd been so focused on my own frustrations that I hadn't been as patient or as empathetic as I should have been. But the longer I sat there, the more I knew that this wasn't just about me being the victim or her being the villain. This was about both of us failing to communicate properly and failing to really listen to each other. When she came back later that night, I could tell she was drained. Her mom's condition wasn't great, but she had to make some difficult decisions about her care. I could see the weight of it all on Lisa's shoulders, but I also knew that if we didn't start taking care of our own relationship, it wouldn't matter what happened with her mom. We would lose each other, and neither of us wanted that. "I think we need to go to therapy," I said to Lisa as soon as she sat down. It wasn't the conversation I was expecting to have, but it was the one I knew we needed. I can't keep pretending like everything's okay when we're not talking about the real issues. I love you, but I need us to work on this. Together. Lisa nodded slowly. "I agree. I've been thinking about it too. I don't want to lose us, but I don't know how to fix everything on my own." We both sat there for a while in silence, the weight of our conversation hanging heavy in the air. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were on the same page. Maybe therapy wouldn't fix everything, but it was a start. A chance for us to rebuild the connection we'd lost somewhere along the way. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but think about everything that had happened. There was still so much unresolved, so much we needed to work through, but I didn't feel hopeless. For the first time, I felt like we could actually fix this if we both committed to it. And that's when I heard it, a knock at the door. My brother, Chris, had shown up unannounced. I was too tired to deal with him right then, but I knew he wasn't going to let me go without a conversation. I got up slowly and made my way to the door. Chris stood there with a concerned expression, his hands shoved into his pockets. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice carrying a weight I hadn't expected. I sighed, stepping aside to let him in. "Sure. Why not?" I said, trying to hide my exhaustion. I didn't have the energy to fight him off or argue, but I was definitely in no mood for more unsolicited advice. Chris took a seat on the couch, and I sat down across from him. There was a pause, a beat of silence, before he finally spoke. "I'm just worried about you, man," he said, looking at me with genuine concern. "You know, Lisa's been really upset about everything with your mom, and I know it's been tough on both of you. But I think you're missing something here." I could feel my frustration creeping back up, but I held it in check. I wasn't in the mood to get into a long argument about my marriage with him. "Chris, we're fine. We just need some space to figure things out, okay? You don't have to worry about it." He shook his head. "No, I think you're wrong about that. You're trying to fix everything on your own, and you're not even listening to her. She feels like you've been shutting her out too. You can't expect her to just get over all this by herself." I felt a sharp pang in my chest. "I'm not shutting her out. I don't know how much more I can give. I've been dealing with my own stuff, too, and every time I turn around, her mom needs something. It feels like I'm the only one holding everything together, and I'm just getting tired of it." Chris sighed heavily. "I get it. You've got your own pressures. I see that. But you can't keep acting like her mom's situation isn't affecting her too. She's drowning, and she doesn't know how to ask for help. She's scared, and you're the person she needs most right now. You've got to step up, man. For her." I was quiet for a moment, taking it in. He wasn't wrong. I could see now that Lisa wasn't just emotionally unavailable. She was burnt out, and I hadn't been as sensitive to that as I should have been. But at the same time, I couldn't keep being the one to sacrifice everything and feel like I was being taken for granted. There had to be a balance. I'm not asking her to do it all by herself, I finally said, my voice softer. I just need her to acknowledge that I'm struggling too. This whole thing can't just keep falling on me while she keeps pretending like everything is fine. Chris nodded, but there was something in his eyes that told me he wasn't fully convinced. I hear you. But have you tried asking her what she needs, instead of just telling her what you need? That hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't really been asking her what she needed. I'd been so caught up in my own frustration that I didn't stop to think about how much she was struggling. I was just reacting, not listening. I haven't, I admitted. But maybe I should have. Maybe I've been too focused on my own problems to see how much she's dealing with. And that's when I heard the doorbell ring. It was my mom. I looked at Lisa, who was still sitting beside me, clearly exhausted but also relieved that we were having this honest conversation. Before either of us could say anything more, the doorbell rang again. Pulling my attention away, I stood up, heading for the door, my mind still spinning from everything that had just happened with Lisa and Chris. But I knew I had to deal with whatever was coming next, even if it felt like my emotional bandwidth was already maxed out. I opened the door and found my mom standing there, looking like she hadn't gotten the memo that things were already complicated enough. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's up?" She didn't waste any time. "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." I wasn't sure if I was more annoyed or just exhausted, but there she was, pulling me away from what felt like the most important conversation I'd had with Lisa in a long time. I've been trying to set boundaries with Lisa's mom, and even with my own family, but it feels like every time I do, it gets twisted or ignored. I know I should have been more patient with Lisa earlier, and I probably could have handled some of the family drama better. But at the same time, I feel like I've been asking for the bare minimum. For people to acknowledge that I have my own needs and struggles, too. So, am I the a-hole for standing my ground on these boundaries, even if it means risking more tension with Lisa, my mom, and everyone else? Or am I just being too selfish here? Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about how it all unfolds, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.